Hi, everyone. Welcome to Future Independence, a new AIM conference. My name is Sara Al-Hamad. I will be moderating this panel, Routes to Release. I'm the Paralegal and Business Affairs Manager at AIM. I also run my own record label and have a radio show on Soho Radio. And since this is a conference where we are trying to make it more exclusive for the benefit of blind and visually impaired people, we're also asking everyone to self-describe. So I will start with that. I'm a woman in my early 30s with curly hair, wearing a black t-shirt with my favorite independent orchestra, Mimica Orchestra. And before introducing the panel, I'll invite my panelists to maybe introduce themselves too. So in no particular order, Maya, we can start with you.
Hi, yes, I'm Maya Kalev. I work at Stones Throw Records, which is an independent record label. Oh, I'm a woman in my early 30s wearing a green shirt. Yeah.
Thank you, Maya. Yasin.
Hi, I'm Yasin El Ashrafi. I'm a white male with mixed heritage, wearing a grey t-shirt. I'm currently sat in my office in HQ, which is our creative hub and where our studios run out of.
And Simon.
Hi, I'm Simon from Absolute. I am a white male in my 40s, slightly balding, which is a bit disappointing. And what else can I tell you? I'm owner, managing director of Absolute Label Services in the UK.
Well, welcome all, and thank you all for agreeing to do this panel. So today we're going to talk about what can we do to make sure that we optimize our releases and how important are the partners in that whole process, with special focus on music distribution and choosing the right distributor, and how can that help build the campaign, help lead the campaign. What are the benefits of tapping into that knowledge that is lying in the distribution? So I guess the first question is where do you start? So let's say that we have a self-releasing artist, someone who's just recording their first album. Where would such person start? What are the first initial questions the person should ask themselves? And maybe Yasin, if you can start, and then we can go in circles.
Okay, so I think for me, I think a lot of this, I've been working in the music industry about 10, 11 years. I've only been releasing music for the last 4, but with a lot of the artists that come through the studio, I think a lot of them, it's not necessarily albums, it's probably more singles and stuff that a lot of people are starting with. And I think for me, kind of the first questions is usually like, what's the goal? What are you trying to achieve with the music? So it's kind of first and foremost, make sure you've got everything packaged right. You've got a good product. It sounds as good as it can sound, but then more like, okay, so are you trying to get it out there just so that people can hear it, because some people just want it so that it's on the internet, in which case maybe the better off starting off with, kind of just free to use services, whereas some people it's like, okay, I've been singing for a long time. I'm finally going to get my debut single out and we really want to make an impact, So I think it does depend a lot on the artist and the product and what they're aiming to get. But I think then it's kind of things like thinking about, like what your budget is, so some distributors you might pay to distribute through. There's other kinds of distribution where they take a percentage, but so if you can either pay and keep all your royalties, or you can give the distributor a percentage instead of that, instead of paying, so they might take 20% of your royalties or whatever. And then so some distributors you have to apply to be, I suppose, for them to distribute you for. So for some people, they might want that because it's, I suppose, a seal of approval, it's a well-known distributor. It might be, Apple and Spotify preferred distributors, and then to be honest, some people, they're just so eager to get it out. They just want a really good, fast distribution partner who they know will get the music out on all stores. in a really quick turnaround, you know, and provide them maybe the things they want, whether that might be pre-save links or that kind of stuff. But then again, there's other distributors that also offer services around promotion, you know, so you might be able to pay and they might help you with the press release or even the artwork. And, you know, so there's a lot of distributors of varying sizes, you know, so I think it's probably for me about doing a little bit of research, not rushing into it, you know, kind of maybe finding a distributor that fits your vibe and what you're going for, you know, maybe read the reviews and, you know, kind of even also maybe even looking at artists maybe in your local area or that you want to replicate, you know, saying like who do they use even maybe. So it's a really, really broad subject, to be honest. And I know it's different at all the different levels. Like, so when we started with one distributor, which seemed great at the time, but then they didn't work necessarily on the tech side well enough for the amount of releases we were using. So then I kind of moved to a different distributor where we have a more personal relationship and I can call them if I need to. And, you know, so I might give a slightly bigger percentage away, but I'm much happier with the service.
So when it comes to, you can choose between a model which is paying the distributor a percentage, but there are also a lot of providers that you can literally pay a fee. When you were doing your research, that initial research for your label, what were the things that you were asking yourself when deciding between the two models? Is it sometimes in your experience maybe a bit better to have that human on the other end to communicate to and, you know, to really build up that release? Or did you maybe in the early stages prefer to work through a software?
I think in the beginning, like we chose through the software and do it all through the software, and we paid the fee to have unlimited releases because we was intending on putting a lot of releases out that year. So we thought, well, rather than paying each time, you know, at that point, I suppose we was thinking maybe there was going to be a lot of money in all these releases, and you know, like we want to keep it all. We don't necessarily want to give it away, you know. Whereas after a year, and then there was problems with the tech side, and sometimes submitting tickets and waiting for people to get back to you, and you know, if something goes wrong on release day, you know, I want to kind of get it sorted straight away, or you know, so we kind of decided, well, you know, I'm going to go with this other distributor because they're going to take a percentage, but I've got unlimited changes, I've got a better platform, I've got a human I can actually speak to, and as they grow, you know, we're kind of trying to grow, I suppose, together, you know, rather than just plugging straight into a massive company and a massive software that's already there, that's just churning out millions of releases a year or whatever. So I think, yeah, in the beginning, I think maybe we didn't do that much research. I think it was more about, well, let's just get something that works and get it out quick, you know, and yeah, it was more, we weren't really thinking about the extra things that a distributor can do for you. It was just about who can get it out there.
The quickest, yeah.
Yeah, the quickest, really.
Simon, when you were starting Absolute, and how did your thinking go when deciding on which route to take and in which way to build your company?
It was quite simple for us because we've actually been going for 24 years now. I feel old now. So 24 years, and we were one of the first true label service companies when all there were distributors at the time, basically. So we were born in a physical world, and then of course there was a massive transition into the digital world. But for us, the most important thing has always been, and I come from a label background as well. I'd worked at a major. I'd worked with large indies, and the importance for us was offering that level of service over and above a standard distribution deal. So we realised the importance of making sure that independent labels and artists have access to all the expertise they need. So we made sure that we built a company that could actually give these people the expertise that they need and have a selection service where they can just use whatever they want of us and then bolt it onto their existing label. And that was successful and brilliant. But I'd like to add, which is completely anti against what we do, that these software as a service companies are fantastic because it means that everyone has got a low barrier to entry. So anyone can get their music out. But that fantastic element is also the downside, which is that everyone's got access to get music out. So it builds this huge echo chamber where, you know, we've got 70 million tracks on Spotify. We're putting 60,000 tracks up a day onto Spotify. How do you get heard? So then it goes back to, Yassine's made some great points there already about how you actually, where you fit in this model. Where are you at your life cycle? So it's important to understand that and get to grips with all the bits you can't do, or learn about all the areas you think you may be missing out on, so you can make sure which are the important ones and get them covered off. I mean, for example, getting a record available on Spotify or Apple Music is one thing, but then you've got to promote and market that record. But on top of that, you've got other areas, which is your direct to consumer, your physical side. You've got neighbouring rights, which is incredibly important. So you've got to make sure that you're not missing out or leaving money on the table as well. So that's where label services comes in, because we make sure you don't miss out on all those areas, basically. And that was the importance of what we did for Absolute.
I guess that is maybe when someone just starts to release music, I would say that maybe considering something like using label services would be maybe a little bit further down the line, because you have to build up some kind of catalog, have some kind of audience. One of the things that I found with my label in particular, in that very early stage, is that there is a lot of I mean, it might sound like hidden fees. They're not really hidden, but you don't think about them when you're just entering, you know, naively thinking, oh, look, I can do this, you know, it will cost me only 20, 30 quid. And then you realize, in order to actually have the impact, you need to pay another 50 and then another 50. And then that kind of rolls out. But let's say, okay, so we covered the self-releasing artist, someone just starting the release. And now let's say we did it well and we are creating a catalog, but it's still an early stage catalog. So we are a smaller label. Maya, maybe you can help lead us into this thinking of a smaller label that is looking to grow, to scale. Like rewind back through your experience, and what would be your advice in that step where you realize that you have something going on and now you're looking for a partner that maybe like slightly higher level, something more alongside label services?
Yeah, I would say look for a really great distributor that can offer you a lot of services, or a label services company that can help plug all those gaps and really add value to what you're doing. If you're already at that stage where you've already got a small fan base and some recognition, then it's time probably to start thinking about, I thought that was a really good point you just made actually, Simon, about not leaving money on the table. I think a lot of people don't know how much money they are leaving on the table when it comes to things like neighbouring rights. And that's where a label services or company or a distributor can make sure you're not doing that by registering everything you release properly. Or you might decide to go, and this is if you have the bandwidth to do the research that Yassine mentioned, you might decide to go with a sort of constellation of various things. You might decide to go with one of the more self-service distributors and then, you know, sort of cherry pick what you need, whether that's going with like a neighbouring rights company that can pick up all that money, all those revenues for you. Someone like a playlist plugin company. It depends on what your own needs are. So I think one thing we all believe is even at this stage of like having a label and it doing all right and sort of wanting to scale, be really honest with yourself about the gaps you need to fill and the value that someone else can add. And I would also say, don't try and do it all yourself, even if you think you can, because, you know, you just will have more success if you open it up to more people.
Definitely, team is always stronger. But they kind of, so let's say that you are working with one distributor and you are realizing that kind of model at the stage that you are trying to reach, you're building your company, that model that your distributor so far doesn't work and you need to change the distributor. This is a particular area that I've heard a variety of experiences, and so, for example, with Stones Throw, have you went through such an experience? Have you went through changing a distributor, or maybe Yassine, if you have any experience to share, just about things to be mindful of? There was a lot of mention about how data is important, and that data kind of got me to ask you this question, because it will make the end process, I guess, a bit easier.
Yeah, I know with me, to be fair, when we moved our catalog over, we didn't actually store everything as well as we thought we had, you know, so there was some of the tracks by the time we'd moved over were, you know, quite old. They'd been made a few years ago, you know, so, you know, trying to then relocate all them, because we didn't actually know how it worked, you know. So for me, it's just, oh, we'll just change distributors and everything will move over. And actually realize everything had to be re-uploaded, and, you know, the artwork and all the tracks and stuff, you know. So finding all those original WAVs and stuff that were uploaded the first time, and the high quality artwork, and digging out all the contracts was a bit of a lesson for us, you know, to like, yeah, let's not have this again, because then we had to then re-upload everything, and then that label, that distributor then took over that from the catalog, so it moved over. But I think for us, it was a real kind of, I suppose, a bit of a moment, a bit of a light bulb with, oh yeah, we're not doing this as well as we should, because we kind of started by just releasing music. It's more of our friends and people that we were working with on like community projects, you know. So in the beginning, although we was trying to be professional and do everything industry standard, it was still kind of a lot of people who, you know, we're just trying, we're learning as we go along, I suppose, you know. So that's why now when I'm working with people who are starting, who were where we were 4 years ago when we started, you know, like, make sure you get a folder, a master folder, and, you know, back it up on 2 hard drives, having a USB somewhere, you know, because again, we had a hard drive that had everything on it that went corrupt, and that was like 20 releases worth of music that was all on this hard drive. So some of that, I even bought it to then re-upload it, you know what I mean? Because it was just a bit of a nightmare trying to find it all. So I think, yeah, that's a good thing to be aware of. But, and I think if you do need to change distributors, change, you know, like if something's not working anymore, then it's fine to move on and try something different, you know. And even with my current distributor, there's been a couple of releases I've still tried with a different distributor, you know, because so I've used, I think, 3 different distribution people, and I also kind of, like Maya said, I cherry pick certain services. So with our artists, they're so different. I feel like there's different specialists who can help more with the reggae fusion band, and someone else who can maybe better placed to help with the hip hop, or someone else who's better placed to help with the dance music. So I think sometimes that is a good way as well. And I think, again, we'll probably end up potentially moving again at some point if needs be, or maybe have one artist who's with a particular distributor if they really fit that, you know, that kind of the roster and the music and what's going out with that people. So I think, yeah, the data is really important, your metadata, your contracts, you know, and just keep it all really safe for when if you do have to move.
Just so you know, yes, and you're not alone in that. The standards for the data have gone up and up and up by all of the digital service platforms. So you're not alone there. All labels are in the same position where they thought they had it fantastically clean and tidy, and then realized they need even more metadata to make it up to today's standards. And interestingly, connected to this, I actually did a blog piece on implementing a code of conduct for moving distribution companies, because what I think is incredibly unfair is holding labels to ransom over their assets. So it's something that I'm desperately trying to push with AIM, to push out to people to sign up to, distributors to sign up to, so that if you leave on good terms, if you're leaving on good terms, there's no reason why they can't actually deliver back to you all of your assets and your XML, etc. I think it's really important. We're working in an independent community, and we all have to look after each other. You know, we're representing 34% of global recorded music in the independent music sector. You know, we should have some respect for each other. You know, we're doing a great job here, so let's look after each other.
Especially because there is constantly the pressure to produce even more. And when you produce even more, there's even more data that you need to keep in mind. So having partners, having, you know, people on your team, I would say is of ultimate importance. But Yassine, you mentioned something that kind of caught my ear when you were changing the distributor. Genre played a role, and for me personally, I always kind of struggle. Like, is it more important if you, for example, let's say you have physical product and digital product, and they're equally important for your label, for your brand, but at the same time, there is so often a situation that you know, for example, a distributor who's phenomenal in digital doesn't do physical product, and I could never kind of. I guess I'm not entirely clear with myself. Like, do you choose the genre or do you choose the product? Like, what was your guiding line?
Well, I think for us, to be honest, like we've never really done the physical side. You know, it's all been basic. It's all been digital. You know, and when we have done anything physical, we've done it in house. We've just printed a load of CDs and either sold them for a few quid, or we've just given them away as kind of promotional items. So I think if we was doing physical, then I would definitely be looking for a distributor who's, you know, like more, who knows more in that world. I think, and that would be more important necessarily than the genre. I think with the digital, because it's like I know there's certain distribution companies we looked at, but they were a little bit more geared towards like world music, say, than the sort of stuff that we was doing that was a little bit more urban, you know. So it was kind of, I looked at who they were distributing, who were doing well, and there was no one really in the same kind of lane that we were in, you know. So I kind of thought, well, let's go with people, because again, it's kind of still a little bit of a thing about, it's not just what you know, it's who you know, you know. So if they know they've got certain contacts that, oh, I know this playlist will like this song, or, you know, we've got the other services that can help push your music. And again, it's a real personal thing, I think. And I think it's about, you know, looking back, I think we should have probably took more time into research. And I think a lot of people are in a real rush to put out the music, where the main plan is just put the music out. But then once it's out, it's like, well, what next? You know what I mean? And then a lot of people can get really disheartened because they don't get what they were hoping for off the back of it. You know, they don't get any on any playlists, and they don't get any blogs or whatever, especially if they've not budgeted for it, you know. So I've seen people spend a lot of time and effort and money on the music, but then put nothing at all into promoting it, and then a week later it's as if it's never happened, and, you know, they just kind of forget about it and maybe move on to the next, you know. So where again, you can keep promoting a song for as long as you want. You know, there's people who might promote one single for 6 months or 8 months, you know. So I think it's about, you know, kind of doing what you think is right, but also, again, with places like AIM and things like this as well, you know, I've joined AIM to get more knowledge and to learn more about this kind of stuff. You know, who are the best people to distribute with, you know, who are the people who can help me promote it, you know, and then actually try different things out with different releases, you know. So we've still not found our right formula. There's certain things that we try and always do, you know, like make sure we set a release date at least 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks in the future, you know, so it's got more chance of being able to be submitted to editorials and stuff like that. But then other things, we kind of, each release will be treated slightly different depending on what budget there is for that release, you know, what kind of release it is, you know, is it part of an EP, is it part of an album, is it standalone single, you know. So it's, yeah, every release can be different. This is probably, you know, I suppose it's quite hard for people listening, because it's like, well, there is no winning formula to it, you know. It's about, I suppose some of it's about do your research and then do a bit of maybe test and learn, and that's what we're doing. And that's why I'm always kind of looking to learn from other people and trying different people and things to see, once we've got that perfect team, then we'll stick with it, or maybe we'll just keep cherry picking as we go along. And I don't think it's necessarily a right or wrong. I think it's about just do your research and potentially even go with what feels right, you know, like does it feel right? Does it feel like this is someone that we could work with and they're going to give me what I want from this release? So it's definitely a lot based on what you're what do you want your outcomes to be, I suppose, with it, you know what I mean?
To go with it. Yeah. So Maya, with a stone's throw and 25 years, I watched a great documentary about it on YouTube, and I got the impression that, for example, physical product was a big part of the brand, I guess that would be the word, developing over the years. How do you see physical product? Do you see, yeah, that is the question, I guess. How do you see it? How do you see that part fit into your promo campaigns?
So physical is huge for Stones Throw. The label was started by a DJ. A lot of the employees are DJs. You know, we recently opened a vinyl bar associated with the label, like an audiophile listening bar with the founder Peanut Butter Wolf's vinyl collection there. And virtually every release comes out on vinyl. One trend I think everyone is aware of is the massive decline in the CD market, which, you know, I think is a shame because I actually quite like CDs.
Yeah, me too. Big fan of CDs.
But yeah, vinyl is hugely important to the brand and what we do. But it is, as part of the business, you know, digital is the growing part. A lot of indie labels do a lot better on physical than, for example, majors. It's always going to be a really important part of our business. And one part of, we've been talking about distribution, but so maybe this is a bit tangential, but one thing independent labels should never ignore is D2C as well, because that is where you're going to sell a huge amount of your physical, because that's kind of where the super fans are going to be, and those are the people who want to get the physical product. Yeah, however, you asked me how I see it going, and anyone who puts out physical will be aware of the kind of bottlenecks and delays that have been besetting vinyl producing plants recently. Takes a lot longer. There's a lot more planning involved. Timelines are just longer. So yeah, everyone is trying to produce vinyl at once, sort of. And it's been difficult, and it means being more flexible and being a bit more nimble, and maybe thinking, all right, does every release have to come out on digital and vinyl at the same time? Or do we put our release back by 6 months to kind of accommodate that? And I don't have an answer, to be honest. I just think independent labels have always been very flexible, and that's just another way in which we will need to continue being flexible and innovating.
Finding ways, definitely. And I mean, we kind of all agree that digital is, you know, becoming bigger and bigger, and you know, that's where the development seems to go, although there has been a big resurgence in vinyl sales. And as you say, super fans will always look to get the product on physical. But because we are so leaning into the digital spectrum, I'm wondering, is it possible that that kind of traditional role of a record label is starting to change, and you're looking more and more into label services, which kind of do a lot of the things that would usually be associated with a record label? So yeah, thoughts on that. How do you see it progressing? Do you think we're onto I guess a Japanese model comes to my mind, where, you know, distributors and labels are in many ways swapped places? Maya, yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so from that perspective. I think it's important that we set out our business to define the fact that our clients get to keep the rights to their recordings. So that's how it works for us. So as far as we're concerned, we're a record company who flips the model on their head. So what we're saying is, we don't own the rights to the recordings, and you pay us a royalty for each record you sell. So that's the way it works. I don't think there's any. I don't see it crossing over, basically. It's important we know our roles and we know what we're doing, and we specialize in our own areas. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. There's one thing I wanted to just quickly say I think Maya made some really good points there about the physical side of things and the direct to consumer thing. For those people out there that are actually considering moving into the physical world, D2C is by far the best way to do it, right? So if you haven't got a fan base, then this is not really a conversation. But if you have a fan base of a size, what is a conversation is actually building your own direct-to-consumer store or using existing direct-to-consumer stores and actually pre-ordering certain releases physically on your site. So therefore you can understand and anticipate demand so that when it comes to manufacturing, you're actually making a judged bet on how it will perform. So you're not placing an order for manufacturing on things that you'll never be able to sell. Because one of the huge issues with being independent and being green is the fact that you just think, I love my release and I think it's the best thing in the world. And I'm going to manufacture 500 CDs or I'm going to manufacture 1,000 vinyl and it will sell because I know it's brilliant. Well, sadly, that's not true. So what you have to do is be clever about it, go direct to consumer. And if you've got a fan base, and then you can gauge how much interest there is for your product. And you can have a direct relationship with your fan as well, because you're data collecting at the same time. I could go on for ages, but I'm not. Anyway.
I was actually going to say the exact same thing as Simon. I've sort of been on both sides of it. I've worked in kind of very boutique label services and also at a label. So I don't think one is set to replace the other. I think they do different things, and I think they stay in their own lanes, really. And I think, I know this is becoming something of a theme, but what you go with just depends on what you need individually as an artist or as a label.
And where to turn, definitely. I mean, with a distribution deal, in my opinion, a lot has to do is like, it's basically the way you grow your team, because you want that distributor to believe in your music, to believe in your product, and to help you position yourself and grow as a label. But yeah, with physical, Simon, I really like that point about pre-ordering, especially in these days when there is a big influx of orders that are basically swamping all the factories, and with everything that is happening. Okay, so I guess we talked a bit about the self-releasing artist. We talked a bit about manager. We talked a bit about the label and how to kind of position yourself into that distribution market. We touched upon some models that are out there, and we touched upon the difference between the physical and the digital.
Well, I say one last thing about that.
Yes, of course.
So we were talking about sort of the separation between the two, and I think increasingly, like, you are able to be a bit more kind of a la carte about it. There are a lot of digital distributors that only do digital, but will partner with physical distributors. Idol is one of them, for example. A lot of distributors who do both physical and digital can make a deal with you for one or the other. A lot of large independent labels that move enough units, I guess this is a bit less relevant, but I'll just finish the point and move on. A lot of large independent labels that move enough physical units do physical only deals with big distributors and keep their digital and take care of that themselves. A lot of much smaller labels go with a physical only distributor because they can use one of the services to just get their music up there on DSPs, and it's more important to them that their records are in stores. So I don't think it needs to be a case of either or. You can definitely have both and pick and choose.
What I would add to that, though, is you've got a lot of like companies like ourselves who basically won't actually split the two out, because obviously if you're just doing a physical deal and you've got a very small catalog, then it makes it very difficult to offer the level of service that we need to offer to our clients with only participating on one side, as it were. So you're absolutely right, though, Maya. There are independent people, but some people, some label services companies will want to bolt it in together. I just want to flag that.
And I guess since you now touched upon that topic, that is kind of this last segment that I want to talk about, is like from the distributor perspective, when you have someone approaching you, be it a self-releasing artist or a manager or a label, how do you choose? Is there like an A&R moment, or is it something else that you look?
Well, from our side of things, you know, is there an A&R? We don't call it an A&R process at all. And for us, it's about, I mean, the point is, I could not like a record, or the label management team could not actually like a record, but totally get where it is and totally get how it could be successful, or get how we could plug in all of our experts to make it improve the sum of all the parts. So it's not necessarily about an A&R process. It's about, you know, when someone comes to us, we have to be selective over the clients that we do take on, because for us, the important thing for us is offering out service. So we live or die on the fact that we offer a great service to our clients. So with a limited number of people that can service our clients, we have to make sure we haven't got too many clients that people are missing out on those services we can offer. So that is the most important thing, to make sure we got that level of service there. And then it's about how seriously these people that come to us, how seriously they're taking what they're doing. So if someone's coming to us saying, I fancy giving this a go. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I don't know. It's my first time releasing a record. Yeah, why not? We know that's going to be a nightmare for us, because we know after a conversation that this person is not up to speed really with all the things they should be up to speed with. And in order for us to help them, it's going to take us twice as long to explain absolutely everything to them in order to get them further along down the line, which is what our job would be. So we have to be aware of that stuff. So no, we don't listen to a record and say, do you know what? I'm not into this reggae track. I don't do reggae. We cross all genres. We're going from classical through to hip hop, through dance. We do everything. But the point is, we have to offer the service and all the other things that come along with it.
And in your experience so far, since you're offering label services, we talked a bit about like how you have to be at a particular stage of development in order to, consider even getting that kind of a deal agreed. So would you often get approached by artists, by managers, by labels, smaller labels, bigger labels, everything? No rule.
Our client range goes from an artist who manages themselves through to a large independent record company. And any stop in between. So it really is a case of, something catches us at the right moment and we think, do you know what, we can add value to this, we can make this work. That's when we get excited. Think about it. If I was saying something to anyone out there that's trying to look for a distributor, think about it round the other way. So flip it and just think, well, why are they going to be interested in me and what I'm doing? What is it I can bring to the party as well? Because a lot of time, people will come to us and say, right, well, tell me what you can do. Tell me what you can deliver to us. Well, that's fine. And we can tell them about all our services, but we also need to know, what are you bringing? Have you got some fantastic acts? Have you got some fantastic tracks? Have you got a mentality that means that you're going to push things and make things work? That's what we get excited about.
I guess since we as AIM, we represent independent distributors, and yes, Absolute is one of our distributor members. And I guess my final question would kind of be, when it comes to distribution landscape in particular, and people considering to join a major distribution chain or an indie one, what would you say are the pros and cons of each?
So I'll let someone else talk, because I talk too much.
Yes, please, Maya, Yassine, take on. Have you ever worked with a major distribution company, or were you mainly sticking to indie companies?
We've worked with a major distributor company in the past. They were great. I think, even though it was a major owned distributor, I knew our label manager there very well. There was always someone at the end of the phone if I needed to talk to them. They were fab, but their sort of vision for how they wanted their business to go changed over the years as the landscape changed. And after a really long time of being distributed by them, it was just like they wanted one thing and we wanted another. So we parted very amicably.
One thing that I tend to hear a lot is that with the independent distributors, that they're usually like more offer like a more boutique services, and that they are much more like easier to work with when someone is a mid-size label, because usually it's like if a label is not at a particular level where they distribute a big amount of content, putting big amount of content out, that basically what you get is access to market rather than the fuller so to say services deal.
There's different levels of independent distributor as well. So there are independent distributors such as Pias that, you know, distribute #1 albums several times a year, and then there's much smaller distributors that work with like 1 or 2 person run labels. So I think even within independent, there's a full spectrum of what's available. So yeah, again, a huge range. I would say that it generally makes sense if you are an independent label and your hope is to make sure your record is available in independent record shops, if physical is something you care about, or if digital is something you care about, make sure that, you know, whoever is doing your digital pitching is getting it to people who care about independent music, then by and large, an independent distributor will probably be your best bet. Because something like a really, really great relationship with HMV is probably not as high on your list of priorities as a great relationship with Phonica or Rough Trade or Sounds of the Universe. So you've kind of got to go with what you need as well.
Well, okay. Thank you all. Yes, Simon.
I was going to say, it goes back to when whoever you are, what size you are, it's about actually understanding what you're trying to achieve and actually know where the weaknesses are in your setup. So then from that point, once you discover what your weaknesses are, whether it's to do with playlisting, whether it's promotion, whether it's marketing, whatever it may be, you then need to discover what partners exist that are going to be able to fill those gaps for you. But all the time being aware of a budget that you set yourself at the beginning in order to get access to those specialist people, basically. There's a lot of people, thank goodness, because it's the independent community, you will find there are a lot of specialists out there who will actually work on records because they absolutely love them. Yes, there aren't many, but yes, there are a lot of people out there who would actually work on a record because they absolutely love it and they want to try and see it happen. Yeah, I would say don't dismiss anything. You know, try everything you can out there and just make sure you know the bits that you're missing and fill those gaps.
Okay, and I guess this final part before I kind of summarize and turn to Q&As, if there is one particular piece of advice that you were to give someone who has a very small catalogue, what would that be? Yassine, we haven't heard from you in a while.
I would say, like, again, find the right people to work with. You know, I think for us, we've got, you know, like, it's quite a small, it's not a massive catalogue. It's not small now. I think we've got quite a couple of 100 tracks out altogether, but that goes from a few different things. But I think it's find the right people to work with, you know. So for us, we've managed to find a couple of like small publishers that have helped us get some sync deals out of it, you know. So although the songs are not necessarily done amazingly well the first time around when we've released them, you know, now we've got it in a computer game, or now we've got it in a film, you know, that's generated more revenue than all of the sales, you know, combined from maybe the rest of the catalog, you know. So I think for me, it's about trying to find other ways maybe of making something out of your music, even if it don't do what you want it to do in the first instance. So that's a good bit of advice, I think.
Thank you. Maya?
So a bit of advice for a small label.
Yeah, someone with, I don't know, let's say up to 1,000 songs in their catalogue.
Okay. I think it goes back to what Simon's been saying all the time. Figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are and who you can find, whether it's a distributor or a label services company or a specialty company, to help add value, plug those gaps, and make sure you're maximizing your exposure and your revenue in every way possible.
Okay, and Simon, anything to add?
So I would say from a tips point of view, I mean, catalog wise, ignore that for a minute, just to say that, you know, when you're putting a record out, just make sure you're doing the simple things right as well. And by that, I mean, simple things like the hit record is recorded in the studio, right? So it's basically, you then need to work that track. You need to work really hard to make that track successful. And in order to do that, you need to cover off things that are simple, like verifying your artist profiles. You need to make sure that everything is set up correctly on those profiles. They're constantly being updated. Just by doing that on Spotify, it gives you access to pitch for playlists, okay? So just make sure you get those things right, because Spotify care. If you care about your artist profiles, then they will care about listening to you when it comes to trying to get a record through to them for playlist promotion. On that subject, be aware, make sure that your track is fit for purpose, in the sense that you've got it right in a radio edit sense, right? So traditionally, back into the radio edit days, you know, you've got the hook coming in at 40 seconds, or get the hook in even earlier. You know, other artists have done that as well, right? Because if you are fortunate enough, and I call it a poison chalice. So let's say, for example, you landed on New Music Friday and you got on that playlist, you'll be thinking it's the most amazing thing in the world. Now, if you're a new artist and you're getting listened to, they're looking at the data constantly. So if you're getting skipped every time your track is being played on New Music Friday, they see that. So you're within 24 hours, your track's pulled off that playlist. And then you've got a mark against you that will say, yeah, we're not going to worry about that artist anymore because it didn't quite work on that. So be aware, it's a bit of a poison chalice as well. Don't try and shoot for the stars when it comes to playlists and things like that as well. You know, it's important that you're just realistic about it and get the hooks in. People are discovering your music. Make sure they get to the hook straight away.
Well, thank you. And there's a valid tips and advice, and I hope that people in the audience find it useful. Yes?
I was going to say, one other thing that's really, really cool and important. If you're digitally releasing, then make sure you set up pre-saves and pre-ads, because that's a great way to data collect, and that's a great way to know and get direct to your fans as well. And there are things called, we have our own one, but called Slinky, but basically there's something called Linkfire as well, where you've got a single destinations where you can then springboard off to the various platforms. That's another great way of data collecting as well, and knowing your audience from a digital perspective.
Okay, I will see in our Q&A if we have any questions, which, oh, they are there. We have Simon, you mentioned green distribution. Does Absolute try to use environmentally friendly supply chains, materials, etc.? Is this important in distribution?
Right, so our physical distribution is via Proper and Universal. So we've had 2 physical deals, which we do not actually staff up, so I can't answer for them. But everything else from our business is a digital offering. We have our own digital delivery system, so that's quite green. And as far as any other business objectives we have, we always try and use green companies, whether it comes to insurance, pensions, etc., etc. So yeah, we do our best on that front for sure.
And as AIM, we also offer a lot of resources. Our membership manager, Jude, would be a great person to talk to if you would like to hear more about that. Jude has been very, very active with a number of our members in that field. We're working on a lot of resources. Another thing that I wanted to also share with all of you is our Distribution Revolution report that is available to all our members. And today we're launching also our associate membership scheme. So everyone that is distributed by an AIM distributor will become a member of AIM and gain access to this wonderful report that is really, really useful tool if you're trying to wrap your head around the variety of models out there. And, you know, some tips and tricks, and yeah, we hope you all find it useful. We have 10 seconds left, and
Quick.
quick. When I tried creating a Spotify account, I saw that one needs to have distribution. Why is that? Spotify artist account.
Spotify for artists.
Yeah, well, we're done with time.
That's something that could be Googled.
Yeah, literally. Oh, okay. I guess that's it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.